We're glad you're watching Morning Express. It is 7:25 a.m. this Tuesday, the 21st of January. And to our discussion now, we told you we'll be talking about homosexuality, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa, and what we're seeing, the conversations around that, the legislation, and also that we're seeing more and more people confident and bold to come out and talk about what they have felt for a long time they could not. Why that is, I have two lawyers to help us understand and advance this conversation forward. We have with me Anthony Oluoch, who's Acting Executive Director, Gay Kenya Trust. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And Eric Gitari, who's a lawyer. I appreciate you both for being with us, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm still saying that before January ends.
That's 3 weeks later.
No, it's just not on the first when you're allowed to say that. You can say that all along. And in seeking your engagement in this conversation, please tweet us your thoughts at Sophia Wanuna. You'll be able to reach me directly, and quite a number of you already have been tweeting in your questions, which I will put to our two guests this morning. You can also tweet at KTN Kenya and SMSs 22155. And if my director allows, perhaps at some point we could try take some of your calls as well. But get tweeting at Sophia Wanuna. So this topic, one of those that years back we could not sit here and say, oh, today we're talking about homosexuality. It was one of those it has taken a long time to get here. So we'll start with the fact that it is one of those conversations that is not easily, comfortably heard by many people. Eric, why is that?
Because for the longest time, the conversation about sex, sexuality, and the expression of love is a very intimate conversation.
Right.
It's a very private conversation. I bet most of us remember the first time that people realized or knew that we liked someone. We felt as if our private, intimate space had been invaded. So I guess that's why we don't really talk much about sex, sexuality, and issues surrounding reproductive health rights.
Yeah, you agree? It's the same?
I agree. Yeah. It's a very personal, very intimate space to actually talk about sexuality and sex. And that's actually the reason why people feel uncomfortable, not even about homosexuality, but about talking about sex in general. So that is usually the reason why it has taken so long for this to come up.
Yeah, but now we are seeing more and more people talking about it, coming out. We're having these discussions on, television, articles being written, different publications. Why is it that that's happening as well?
I think it's because of the fact that a very private, intimate conversation is being moved into a very open conversation about making people criminals for who they love, for who they have sex with. People are getting so much concerned about what other people are doing in their bedrooms. So we are seeing across Africa a growing tide of people wanting to poke into the bedrooms of others to supervise how they express their intimacy, how they find love, how mature adults are consenting to exploring their sexuality in the privacy of their bedrooms. And I guess because of the effects of this invasion of privacy, such as criminalization and things like public health concerns like spread of HIV/AIDS, it has become a conversation that we can't avoid anymore. Because when you treat a sexual orientation in a way that attracts criminal sanctions around it, attracts queer stigma around it, a way that attracts prejudice and discrimination and isolation around it, then it becomes a focal issue to discuss in society, not just from a legal perspective, but also from a social perspective. And I guess that's why we're having this conversation.
That's why we are indeed. And we had told our viewers we'd be having Binyavanga Wainana with us in studio. He recently did come out. He's not yet arrived. We're hoping he does. So if he does, of course, he'll be part of our conversation this morning. But you've seen the letter that he wrote? It's posted on social media. It's for everybody interested in reading to have a look at it. So he's pretty much put it out there for the world to know and to learn about this. For you, why because I guess the conflict with some people comes in, and I've seen quite a number of tweets touching on that. You talk about it being one of those bedroom issues, it's somebody's personal issue, but now it's come out. And when somebody decides to put it out there, for those who go that step and decide, I'm going to come out and talk about it, isn't that then telling us about your business? Some would argue.
No, I don't think it's if you that's a very weird argument to put out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that person is telling you their business, but it's because of the prejudice.
Why are you saying weird? It's not weird, because one would argue, I don't come and tell you this is the person or this is how everything works or runs with me. So when there's the fact that somebody puts it out, then now some would argue, put yourself up, set yourself up for all these, fingers to be pointed, all these things, manner of things to be said.
No, okay. Society has brought us up in a way that it is norm for you to be seen with another man. For a woman to be seen with another man, but it is not the same norm for a man to be seen with another man, expressing intimacy, expressing love. And that's where coming out comes in. When you put yourself in a space where you're not able to express yourself, you're not able to be yourself in public. So you coming out goes a long way in having someone accept themselves for who they are.
I think another reason why it's very important was, I presume, I had a conversation with Binyavanga last night, and he said he'll be coming. Yeah. So I hope he's perhaps held in traffic. Yeah. But one of the reasons he very well articulated as informing his coming out is because we live in a society where the very invisibility of homosexuals in our society has created and perpetuated this stereotype on who homosexual people are in this country. We see media images when you're running a story about homosexuality, perpetuating that homosexuals are very effeminate men, or men who like to dress like women. And these stereotypes, this invisibility creates a lot of room for fear to be spread, for propaganda to be spread, for things like there's a gay agenda, for things like people are paid or recruited to be homosexuals, like people are converted, that it's a cult. But the very reason of putting a human face behind it is why people like Binyavanga and people like I and a lot of other people are coming out to say, actually, this is not a script, this is not our story, this is not the narrative of who homosexuals are. It's not about a Western import. These are people's lives. People who grew up in Meru, people who grew up in Nakuru, people who grew up in Kadonzoni, or wherever they grew up in, and have not been influenced in any way. They're simply trying to live a very authentic life based on truth and honesty. And we say that in our Constitution, in Chapter 4, that we're an open and democratic society. So a lot of people want to be very open about some of these issues that have become a legal battle in our front as Kenya and also as Africa in this present day and age. And I think for guys like Binyavanga Wanuna, with his profile as a writer known across the world, I think it's for him a very strategic point to come out when in places like Nigeria, they are forbidding people like him from associating or from even being alive there or from holding hands with someone.
Okay, and what you're seeing right now on your screen, it will be back at some point, is that letter. Of course, you may not be able to read, and some of the content perhaps will not want to put it on your screen, but you can read it online. I have tweeted that, and you can read his letter. But that's Binyavanga, the clip you're able to see. Let's go back to the beginning. The question that I've seen very many people tweeting is, when you're talking about homosexuality, is it a condition? Is it a choice? Is it that somebody was born that way? If you're to explain to somebody who struggles with understanding this, because you said very well, many people know a certain man, woman, boy, girl is the norm. And so this is where most people find the difficulty to wrap their head around, how did this happen? Were they created this way? Did they decide? Were they influenced? Is it a condition that some people are born with? Is it some, we'll talk about all manner of things, even as witchcraft. There's all manner of things out there in as far as trying to understand what this is about. What do you tell such a person?
there's a lot of scientific studies that have been done to try and find the origin of sexuality, and not just homosexuality, but bisexuality and heterosexuality. I personally wouldn't have an answer to where is the origin of that. The one thing that I know is that, and this is coming from myself as an individual, is that I did not make a choice. People don't wake up in the morning and decide, you know what, from here on out I'm going to start having sex with men, or I will start loving another man. So it's not a choice that one makes. That is one thing that I know for a fact.
Okay. Would you be comfortable to take us through, for you, what was it? Is it just, he talks about in his letter, which is a letter to his mom, it's a heartfelt letter. You feel him as you read it, talking about he knew from as young as the age of 5 that he was a homosexual, and he lived this, long period of time. He's now 43, and it was a secret for a very long time. At some point, he was able to tell his best friend about it, and now he's really just coming all out to talk about it. Would you take us through, for you, what it was?
I actually identify completely with his letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
How so?
Because I knew from as early as, I can't remember when.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
How did you know you knew?
You just know. I mean, okay. I don't think there's a point where you, I don't think there's a point where you actually, it clicks, it just happens.
It just happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And getting everybody else to know, how did you go about the same?
Also hid it for a very long time, and then I started working within the movement, and that's when people found out.
All right.
Yeah.
How long did it take? How long did you start working in the movement?
I started working in the movement about 3 years ago.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put the same question to you. He said it's very hard to know or to explain to somebody who's trying to understand, is it a flip, a switch at some point in life, born that way? What would you say to that person in helping them understand this?
There's no answer to questions on sexuality.
Okay.
There is 100% right, and there is 100% beyond being refuted.
Right.
As you know, scientists say that there's no one who is 100% male or 100% female. There's XY for men, for the chromosomes, and XX for women. There's no one who is 100% straight. There's no one who is 100% homosexual, according to science. There is science that says that people are born queer because of their genetic predisposition. There are anthropologists who say that people can be socialized to be friendly in a way that allows them to love people without caring what their gender or what genitals they have between their thighs, just about human connections. So it's a very varied debate out there, but what we know is that in 1992, the World Health Organization removed homosexuality from the list of mental diseases. In Kenya, homosexuality is not treated as a mental disease at all. It is not curable, it is not a demonic infestation.
It's not a condition.
It's not a condition. 200 years ago in Africa, in communities like the Zande in Sudan, they looked at homosexual women or lesbian women as very, very powerful spiritual priests because they could not understand homosexuality. Among the Kikuyus in Kenya, the Oneki, who are religious leaders who used to seclude themselves and live in the forest, they used to take upon themselves boy wives. And because of that fact of their bisexual orientation, they were viewed as persons who were simply being used as vessels of healing to the society. Among the Meru, the Mugawe were very popularly known to take upon themselves male lovers, and they're respected and thought of as persons who are occupied by spirit of their ancestors to bring healing to their land. As in, Africans had different ways of trying to explain the homosexuals within their society. But what we like about it is that there was no strand of violence. There was no strand of saying that you've been taught or been recruited by outsiders. The Tulkanas, for example, we were in Tulkana a few weeks ago, and we were told, so we had conversations with these old people about how did you treat people who never married, like men who never married and used to like other boys like them. And the response was, we would just send them off to go take care of cattle. or God to go and hide for months and months away from home because they can't start a family. So different societies have different ways of explaining the homosexuals in them, but what is of value and needs to be underscored, especially in this context we're discussing whether homosexuality is African and what we should do with homosexuality in ourselves, is that people are not treated as outsiders. They are not excluded from the universe of the moral equals in their community.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is something that Museveni underscored actually when he was sending the letter to his parliament this weekend, rejecting the anti-homosexuality bill.
Right, and we'll talk a bit more about what we're seeing in the trans conversations in other parts of the country, but I'll come back to you, Anthony, because what many would also like to understand for you in your journey and the far you've come, when it was difficult to talk about it, to keep it a secret, why is it? What did you fear, or what was your worry or concern?
It's always the stigma, the violence that I've witnessed that has been happening to people who are gays and lesbians. And as Eric was talking, I realized that what is new, what is the thing that is novel in this particular context is the terms gay, the term lesbian, the term homosexual. That is something that has been coined in the last 100 years or so. So it has been there. It's something that has existed, as is told you, for the last 200 years. But people really didn't have a term to put to what it is. And because of that, because of the stigma that people face, because of the rejection that you receive as a person, friends stopping, not talking to you anymore. So that's one thing that made me scared.
And when you finally did your fears, were they confirmed, or were you like, oh, why was I even fearing? It was no big deal.
In some extent, they were confirmed, but I have good friends. I have friends like Eric. I have other friends who are good. Who are good
to you. Eric, the stereotypes, what are some of those that we are seeing in as far as this conversation, those who are out with what it is and believe they are? What are the different stereotypes we see?
People presume that if you're gay, you are very effeminate, like you behave in a certain way, that you flip your fingers, that you're into fashion, that it's such a lie. Like, or there are people who religiously think that if you're gay, you're in a cult, For example, when I was coming out to my colleagues at the Kenya Human Rights Commission, most of them could not believe that I'm homosexual, because they were like, you don't look anything gay. You don't act gay. You're not gay enough. But is there anything like straight enough? Is there anything like gay enough? Is there anything like being black enough? Is there anything like being white enough? Because these are very innate characteristics about people's lives. But when I was coming out to my parents, my mom and dad, who actually are Meru and grew up in the village as I did, I think the stereotype I got mostly from my dad was how it's not accepted by community, how as a lawyer I shouldn't be serving or doing work that is not respected or legitimate within the circles of my colleagues. But with a lot of appreciation to our different realities, whether we are journeying with parents or friends or schoolmates, these are conversations that still are ongoing. And for me, especially coming out within a very, very conservative, masculine context of the Merus.
If you don't mind, take us through that for you. From that moment, did you also have a long period of time when you were not comfortable to talk about it? And then you got to a point and you decided, you know what, I might as well. Take us through that.
Now, for the longest time, especially after puberty, I had very, very many intimate relationships with both genders, men and women. And it was a journey of self-discovery, of a sense of awareness, trying to find out who exactly I am, and understanding why I love people the way I love them. Because it became more not about the sexual attraction. It became more about the need to find companionship, the need to find love that inspires courage in me, that makes me feel at home and safe. In a very, very intimate, profound way.
Yeah.
A way that only someone who has ever loved can understand. And for me, what was very difficult was just my expression of love would find itself within same gender, structures.
Yeah.
And growing up in a society that teaches you right from Sunday school that you cannot be like this. If you are like this,
it will sit like a boy. It will eat, dress like, there's all manner of references.
Eat like a boy, dress like a boy, boys don't cry, don't show emotions. All these teachings and socialization on what it is to be like a man, I think the struggle taught me that men are not all the same, Men are not all the same across the entire universe. True. Africans are not all the same. Kenyans are not the same. We are not all the same. We are different people. Our expression of love, of humanity, of individuality is very, very different. There are people who, for example, if I may speak in Kiswahili, the way we katiana is very different. Everyone has a different opening line. Everyone likes, there are guys who like women who have a particular size, a particular skin color, or who speak in a certain... There's different things that make you attracted to someone.
True.
And you can't explain this to everyone, to the entire universe. You have no duty to defend why you love someone. You simply have to declare that this is a person I'm sharing my life with, excluding all others.
All others. So you got to that point where you realized you were more comfortable with men. Then what?
And then I went and had a conversation with the people who I loved most, my family members.
How old were you then?
I was 28.
Okay.
Yes.
How was that? You call them, sit down everybody, how are you doing?
No, actually, there was no methodology to go around it, but the most honorable thing that I did is that I sat down with my mom and dad. Okay. For me, that was very profound. Trying to explain to them, Mom, you shouldn't really keep expecting me to bring home a girl and start a family on the same structure like you and Dad started. And the concerns were very genuine. Like, we want you to have children. We want you to earn respect in society. My dad was like, dude, you went to law school, the best law school in this country. You graduated in the Dean's List. Why are you wasting your degree working on these issues and trying to be or being something that is not really, really respected? Because respectability in society is also based on your masculinity and expression of it.
Right.
Yeah. But beyond that, I had conversations with my sister, who's older than me, and she was really cool about it. My brother, who's younger than me, who simply asked me, so where did you get the courage to come out in this country full of cowards? Because he believes that Kenyans are such cowards in comparison to the people who fought for the independence of this country because of what freedom and liberty for all. My grandmother grew up in the village, never been to a class. Her question was, she actually laughed very heartily and asked me, so what makes you think you had to tell me this? and then after more laughter, she goes ahead to tell me a very interesting story. You know how grandmothers are.
Yes.
She tells me that when she was very young, very young, she had this disease that made her keep fainting all the time. It was a very, very fatal disease. She doesn't have a name for it a long time ago.
She just knows it was
before colonization. And so our story was, what happened is that her parents brought in a medicine man, Muntumugo, among the Merus, and Muntumuga. The Muntumugo is the one who casts spells. The Muntumuga is the one who removes the spells. The medicine man of last resort, the referral person in the entire community. And he just came, performed this ritual, and within a day, since that day, she's never fainted again. And he renamed her. And then she loves and tells me, this Muntumuga, who now we call Mugawe, was just like you. He would take upon himself male lovers. Where were they from? That means that if he could find male lovers, there are others like him in our society. So don't feel like you're an outsider. You're actually perpetuating the healing that brought our ancestors together and has made sure that our community has survived through generations and generations. Christianity just came less than 100 years ago. Why are we using Bibles to just stamp and exclude people who've been here for years and years?
So good reception from your siblings, from your grandmother.
Yes.
For your parents, how were you able then to later come to some form of balance? Because initially when you told them, they were not for, or they did not understand, they were not welcoming.
I think what we came up with was a social contract on how we're going to move forward.
Yes.
My mom is very desirous to have grandchildren, which is a shared interest with me, which is something I've been working on towards. And so she told me, fine, express your sovereignty as a person, but please, at least give me one grandchild.
Okay.
And I told her, Mom, I am gay doesn't mean I'm impotent. My dad was, the social contract that we had with him was, Eric, if you have to be this, make sure that you go and make something good out of yourself. If you have to be a lawyer who is also gay and fighting for gay rights, be a chief justice in the future. Go and head some UN semi-autonomous body. Go and change the world.
Go still be the best you can be.
Go and kick ass and make a difference out there. You've chosen a very, very difficult fight. Your grandfather was in a very, very difficult fight, like the Mau Mau fight. And even though it doesn't look like there's much hope right now from the general popular majority, go out as a minority and kick ass. Show them what you're made of.
Show them what you're made of. Anthony, thank you for sharing with us. We appreciate, because then that gives context, and just that it's not one easy conversation. You'll sit and everybody's like, hallelujah. There are those who will receive, there are those who will, have difficulty with that. But there are those who, after some time, again, you'll either reach a deal, and there are others who just decide, you know what, we agree to disagree. If you'd share with us a little bit more, Anthony, before we go to this particular fight of rights for these groups, because that's very important. What was it like for you with your family, especially, and your very close friends? Were they, very okay receiving this information?
My brother was okay. When I remember when I told my brother, he looked at me and he said, as if I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
And that was really nice. One of my best friends, when I told him, he went, bingo. Finally, I knew I was just waiting for you to say the word. And I think our friends and our close family, they can sense these things. They can look at you and know that this is who you are, and they have accepted you. It's just you to accept yourself. When my mom found out, and I'm sure she's watching right now, she said that, and she's a very religious woman. I love her to bits. She said that if this is who God wants me to be, then this is who I will be, because she's not going to, she cannot change who I am. And when she said that statement, I got tears in my eyes, and that was it. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, I guess.
I can imagine. But after that, are there people who decided to cut links?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't
people
know.
who you talked to before, and after that were like, this.
I know I receive, because I post a lot of issues on LGBT persons and LGBT status on my Facebook, and I know I get some comments that are very negative, like what are our kids supposed to do? We shouldn't share these things. You shouldn't even air them on TV. And my comment to that, and I never really comment back, but my comment to that is usually, we want to teach our children love. We want to teach them to embrace diversity, because if we tell them that this group of people is bad, we shouldn't talk to them, we shouldn't be with them, then you're teaching them hate. So there are some people who must have cut links. I wouldn't know, because they weren't really that close to me in the first place then.
Because if they mattered, then you'd have realized.
If they mattered, then I'd have realized.
There's these guys from law school, Parklands campus of UN, who told me, dude, after I came out like on Facebook, dude, you came out, you're gay? Well, we all knew, but no hard feelings, but my wife has told me that we can't be friends on Facebook, so please understand why I'm deleting you. I'm blocking you.
Wow.
There's a time that I went to this barber shop in 20th Century, or I think it's called some different name right now.
Right.
In Mamangina Street, Nairobi, to get just a haircut. And it was this Dennis Nzioka. And since these guys had seen us on telly speaking about queer issues, gay issues, they told us, we had been regulars there. They told us, you were seen on telly speaking about your sexual orientation, and people around here are not comfortable about sharing like the machines. I'm like, are we going to spread our gay gene to them? And then they told us that they couldn't give us a haircut because of that.
Oh my gosh.
In terms of people cutting links, yes, people cut links a lot. There are people who tell you to your face that, nah, we can't be friends anymore. We can't like hang out together anymore like we used to hang out before. There are things that we would do together before, like share a room, but we can't do them now because now you are non-homosexual.
Yeah.
If you're seen together, people think that by associating with you, I am too. But it isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to read some of the views we're getting, and I'll, want to hear what your thoughts are. Some very strong. Alfred Leia Kiteme says, "I'm old school. I fail to understand. It's unnatural. It's anti-African. It's unchristian." Justin talks about never ever. It is not one of those things that should be advocated for at all. Wamusi. Non-biblical, God's word clearly indicates intimacy between a man and a woman, enough said. Live and let live. No, but we know Darrow says. I have no quarrel with the gay people. Anyway, that then ends it in a very strange way. But that is the spirit of that. Patrick Cheption, and natural, totally wrong, has no place in the African society. Homosexuality is entirely complicated. That's what Kennedy Masharia is saying. So let nobody define it as evil. He talks about same love. And then we have the dawn, never shall it. Okay, that's actually answering our question of the day. It's on a different topic. We have another one, waking up to an interesting conversation. But it's good that the guys are feeling free to share. That's Kenyan and many more comments. But a lot of what we are seeing, John King, you're talking about it being unacceptable, abomination, we're against it, fight for other causes. That's what Boge is talking about. G. Bobby, we are coping with the West and legalizing homosexuality when it's against our culture. We'll talk about this, and of course many people, as we said at the beginning, they still find it hard to wrap their heads around that. But the reason we're having and important to have this conversation, because it is part of our society. So we cannot be the people that hide behind and say, no, we're just going to ignore this and pretend it's not happening. It is. And you're a Kenyan just like I am a Kenyan. So we're going to take a short break now and continue this conversation. On this Tuesday, amazing conversation we've been having here, lots of insights, also getting to understand the process of when you're talking about coming out, how difficult is it? We've talked about the stereotypes. We still have a couple of things to talk about, but one of those very important is the feedback from you and what you're talking to us about this morning, the questions, your thoughts about the whole topic and conversations around homosexuality. And many of you talking about it being, unchristian, being not normal, being unnatural. Those are some of the words that are coming through. Some of your tweets which I read out, and keep sending your comments at Sophia Wanuna at KTN Kenya. I will be able to read them and put them to our guest this morning, Eric Gitari, Anthony Oluoch, talking to us. When you hear that is the most common of the text that I've read, the tweets, what's coming through unnatural and ungodly, and it's really with the lack of being able to identify where we began this conversation. That's the narrative you get with majority of the Kenyans. What do you say to those people?
I'll tell you a story. In Kiangondu, where I grew up, we used to have this mango tree on the valley, which used to produce fruits twice in a season, especially during September, which is very unnatural of mangoes. And this avocado tree, which also used to do that during September, which is very unnatural of avocado trees. There are a lot of things that we do not understand, and the quickest thing that we rush to conclude is that, it's unnatural. You know, is it unnatural when a fruit or when a tree produces strange fruits when it's not in season? Is it unnatural when we have oral sex, when we know that sometimes you're told the natural use of the mouth is to speak, you know, and eat? Is it natural for us to shake hands as a way of greeting instead of kissing as a way of greeting? These are very varied debate of what's natural and unnatural.
Okay.
People exist within a natural realm of things, whether they're gay or straight. That needs to be respected. The definition of what's natural and natural is very, very contentious out there, and there's nothing that we can say is unnatural. A chair is not unnatural, it's made of natural fiber. Human beings, because of who they love,
and
are
those
not
who argue
unnatural.
ungodly.
Ungodly? Who created all these people who you're calling ungodly? You know, and who is asking you to accept them when God has already created them and placed them in this universe?
Okay.
No one is asking for acceptance. The only thing we are asking is, do not use all these personal prejudices or this. If you don't like the way people have sex, don't go and seek to have it in a law book somewhere. You know,
Okay.
Don't go to Parliament and say, let's create a law saying that you can't have sex through missionary style or you can't kiss through fanyagota like this. Just because you don't like something, just don't go and use your power to visit other people or use other people to join you in your hatred against those people.
Is the kind of stigma, lack of understanding, and also lack of information what has led to the formation of the various organizations that we see now championing for the rights? You're with Gay Kenya Trust. Talk to us about what that does.
It is actually the stigma and the lack of understanding of what or who a homosexual is and what that entails that has led to the creation of these organizations. And like Gay Kenya Trust deals with media advocacy. We write articles in the papers. We try and educate people on what their rights are as per the Constitution, as per the law books. What are your rights as a gay man? What are your rights as a lesbian woman? And that's something that needs to be done. And it's not just a lack of understanding for the society, but it's lack of understanding for the community itself. And this is basically what we're doing here is basically something that needs to be done. We need to tell people that, as Eric very rightfully said, we are human beings. We were created the same way we are. And it's not something that you decide to do. You know, it's the origin of it. So this is the kind of information that these organizations try and do.
And we have the LGBTI.
LGBTI means lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and intersex. A lesbian is a woman who is attracted emotionally, romantically, and intimately, not just sexually, to another woman. Gay is a man who is attracted emotionally, romantically
to
another man. Bisexual, you can be attracted to both men and women. For trans persons, these are people who identify with a gender identity that does not correspond with their biological sex. Intersex, these are people who are born with genitalia that is ambiguous. When you look at their biological genitalia, you can't say, it's not just the biological genitalia, sometimes it could be gonadal or hormonal. You can't really quite place whether they are male or female. They don't fit into any of our binaries. But allow me to go back and remind you with a few examples, things were considered ungodly a few years ago. You know, the Bible was used to justify slavery, slave trade. They used to say that the black person was lesser to the white person. And according to the Bible, which allows slavery, including in the New Testament, when the Europeans and the white man came, they used the same scripture that they're using today to hate on gays. They used that scripture to subjugate the black person and to sell him off as a slave in such dehumanizing conditions. 60 years ago, if you're black, you couldn't marry a white woman in America. If you're white, or white woman, you couldn't marry a black person in America because the Lord, the good Lord, forbids the mixing of these races. You know, black and white cannot mix because it's ungodly.
Right.
But there's so many things that I can even draw from. Like eating of pork, it's ungodly, eating pork, but we eat it. But the good master from the good book came and reduced all these what's godly and ungodly into a very, very simple commandment. Love your God and also love your neighbors, love yourself.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And you know, with these organizations, just to go back to that, we are seeing more protests. We've seen several, you know, just coming out. Why is that we're seeing more of this outspokenness, if I could call it that? And are people, is this message going home? Are people getting to hear and understand what it is you're trying to put out there, the education, the demystification of what some would have thought or not have any understanding of? We'll start with you, Eric.
The women's rights movement took more than 40 years in this country to get to the point where we are at the Constitution, where there's a one-third gender rule, when there is equality between the gender and Article 27 of the Constitution.
Right.
What is happening is, with this new Constitution, I think it is the only constitution we've ever written as a country since independence. The 1963 one was written by political negotiations at London, but this is a Kenyan document. I think what it has done, it has empowered so many people to know that they have a right to exist and to occupy their space in the universe of equals in this country. That they can be equal citizens no matter who they love or how different they are. That there are protections in the Bill of Rights to protect them from being discriminated simply because they are different. I think we have come to a point, and especially after the 2010 Constitution, which was very much informed by the post-election violence of 2007, to a point where we are saying, yes, we are different, but we shouldn't let these differences visit violence upon each other. We shouldn't let it become so deteriorated to inhumanity. And so what organizations are doing, like the Gay Kenya Trust, the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya, the National Gay and Lesbian Rights Commission, is to lead from the front and say that let us have a conversation about how we get included to this universe of equals in our country. You know, let us speak about all these little foxes within the vineyard of our country that are creating discord because of people's sexual orientation, and let us inform this dialogue with facts, with knowledge, not with fear, not with propaganda mongering, not with stereotypes, and not with exclusionary arguments.
All right, and there are quite a number of these organizations. Why not come together and have one huge, you know, organization? Why isn't that just you know, going a long way in terms of not having one forged effort together? Wouldn't that be stronger?
And that's why the existence of the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya. There are various organizations within the LGBTI movement that work on different issues. We, Gay Kenya Trust, work on media advocacy. ISHTA, MSM, works on health issues for men who have sex with men. There is Trans T, which works on transgender issues, and they all work on different issues, but they come together as one to speak with the same voice, with one voice.
All right.
I think it also shows the essence of the maturity within the democratic space of the organizing of the LGBTIQ movement in Kenya, where people can be independent in terms of their thought and their programming and their niche and scope. You know, there are people who are leftists, even in our democracy. There are people who are conservative. Look at things like the children's rights movements, the women's rights movement. There are plurality of actors, each complementing each other and all joining effort in solidarity for the common cause. So I think it's the same replay within the LGBTIQ movement in Kenya.
All right, Sarah Bombok, just a few of your tweets as we go along. Says, lesbian gay people deserve love and happiness too. I have good and lovely gay friends in the States and in Kenya. Linda Cherotich says, if you have accepted the quote-unquote Mpango wa Kando culture, despite it being un-Christian, we can't use the same argument on gay people. Let's see. Frank Jim says, God loves gay people and that's why they exist. Killing them is ungodly. Okay, we have Emmanuel Ian says, no kidding, ever heard of Sodom and Gomorrah? That is what this conversation is bringing out and what will happen and we'll see happening in our society. And somebody also talking about homosexuality is an abomination to God, Eric Mwiti. And of course, you have heard what Eric has had to say in as far as those kind of claims are concerned. Let's talk about now more on what we've seen happen in Nigeria. and Uganda. Uganda, the members of parliament have pushed for the law to, to go through. The president did not assent, but some very interesting words he still had to say. That is President Museveni, in as much as he did not assent to the law. But what does that say for this conversation going forward?
I think it says that there's an element of reflection by leaders, especially if you look at Museveni's 7-page letter to the Speaker of the National Assembly of Uganda and the members of the National Assembly. He simply reiterates that Uganda was like this even before Christianity, even before colonization. He gives them examples of famous kings 200 years ago who are known to be such great leaders despite their private issues with their orientation. Of course, there are a lot of anecdotes that perpetuate a lot of stereotypes on homosexuals in the letter. But what it says is that there's traction. We're moving forward in a way that is informed by anthropological evidence, in a way that is informed by us looking back to who we are as a people. Because we can't go forward when we're ignoring where we came from.
Right.
Yeah, history must teach us how to move forward in a progressive way. In Nigeria, I will tell you what I think as a lawyer. Mr. Goodluck Jonathan is up for re-election within a year. He made a lot of promises to Nigerians which he hasn't delivered. For example, today in Lagos, the supply of electricity is so erratic. Things like water, healthcare, this is just a diversion tactics to make sure that he pleases the conservative Christians and Muslims who make up a majority of that nation. Nigeria is the most religious country in Africa. We all know that.
Right.
So instead of focusing on the election promises that he promised so that people can hold him accountable to that, he wants to focus on a social issue that is diverting attention from the real pressing problems of Nigeria today.
But what does that do to this fight, to this, fight and championing the rights and all in Nigeria?
It is unfortunate because what this has done, it has taken Nigeria back in terms of the gains that they have made in the democratic process. For example, today in Nigeria now, since he signed the law, you can't operate a gay organization. You can't even appear on media like we are today to express our independent thought that people need to be free to love who they love. You can't go to a gay bar. You can't even express support for gay organizations. You can't be seen holding a man their hand for more than 8 minutes. This is taking us back to repression. And you ask yourself, how does a same-sex prohibition bill in Nigeria, has it advanced the welfare of the Kawaida guy there in Lagos? How?
Okay, so he's playing politics with that one.
He's playing politics in a way that is injuring and hurting minority.
Okay.
In a way that is, the day after he signed that bill, there's a state in northern Nigeria that drew up a list of 167 gay and lesbian people who they suspect so they can start witch hunting them. 20 people are already in police custody as we speak today in Nigeria. Why? How have they harmed the peace and welfare of the Nigerian state?
Okay.
None.
All right, Anthony, he's mentioned something about gay bars, and you have a few of those places, bars, I don't know what else, you'd mentioned that we have. When we see the upcoming of this, like places to hang out and to be as a gay person, is it still part of that fight for space? And when do you see this really getting to a place where you don't feel that you have to have and create your own, if one would say, world to still be happy, because many people are having a hard time to accept you in their normal setting?
The only thing I can say to that is that Kenyans and the entire world really needs to accept diversity. I mean, pardon me. The fact that the violence happened in 2007 was because of people fearing another tribe. It was because of the lack of acceptance of the diversity within the community, which is the Kenyan community. Once we have accepted diversity, then we won't really need such kind of spaces. We will probably, yes, we will want to hang out with people who are like us, but we won't really want to have such kind of spaces. Once Kenyans and the society as a whole has accepted that Kenya is a diverse nation. There is light-colored people, there are white people, black people, gay people, lesbians, and straight people. That is all we need to do. Accept diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric.
I don't know what would be told to people so that we are more able to live together as a society.
Yeah.
I think what would help moving forward is to understand that we are not all the same, as Anthony says, that we are different people. And in essence, as we are all pursuing our own happiness, I think what really, really so profound in most of our hearts is that desire to love, to be loved, even after we die, you know, to know that maybe someone was loved or they're remembered in a fond way.
Okay.
And in the society that we're living in today, with a lot of war, disease, corruption, and deceit from our political leaders, I think what we need is to allow people that space to be authentic, to be real and true and genuine with themselves, and to find their path in life and their reason in this universe within that space of freedom and imagination, without having to tell them that we are going to rule your love, that we are going to poke into your bedroom and supervise how you're conducting your expression of love.
Okay, I'll allow you both a minute each as we wind up. This is one of those conversations. There are people watching you, and earlier as you talked to us about how you got to come out, young people, teenagers, late 20s, 30s, some very old, that have lived with this secret, and they wish they would not have had to, you know, to have it all out, the information, have everybody know, so that it's easier for them. Because like assume a burden off of you when you just get that out. And there's some who their parents or loved ones sense they are, you know, like some of your loved ones sensed, but they don't know how to help their loved ones feel comfortable enough to share. And of course, the fear of the stereotypes and what could happen still is a reality for very many people. What do you say as we close, Anthony?
Coming out is a very personal thing. It is, as you said, a burden that is off your back when you actually accept yourself and speak out and tell people, yes, I am a homosexual.
Right.
So it's a very, very personal thing. And until you have gotten to a point where you have completely accepted who you are, you wouldn't be able to come out. And that's where that's the point at which someone wants to come out. The family and friends who have sensed, my advice to them is just to show this person love. Just to show this person that even though you are different, even though you may feel different, you're still my family, you're still my brother, you're still my sister, you're still my son, and I love you for who you are. That is all that person needs. And then as soon as he feels that, the person will be comfortable. Okay. And it is, like I said, very personal, it's really something huge for a gay person to come out and say that they are gay.
They are gay. Finally, Eric.
For me, I think in winding up, I would like to respond to a few rhetorics that we hear a lot in the Kenyan public space. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not analogous to being a homosexual in this country, because Sodom and Gomorrah, if you read your Bible very well in the book of Genesis, it says that young and old men of the city of Sodom gathered and they wanted to have sex with the angels. Our sexual orientation, or for me being a homosexual in this country, you haven't seen I, Anthony, Binyavanga, and other of our friends gathering at every door in the estate trying to rape people, because the story of Sodom and Gomorrah was just a story of rape. Okay, people wanting to have forceful sex. And also, if people care to read their Bible, if you look at Ezekiel 27, it says that Sodom and Gomorrah was burnt because they were very inhospitable to strangers and were arrogant and wicked in their ways. So we need to separate all these discourses. Okay. Another thing is that sex is not purely for procreation and having children. I think if we keep saying that homosexuals should not be allowed because they're not helping reproduce the species, it's a lie, because homosexuals are not necessarily impotent people. And two, there are people who have respectfully chosen not to have children. There are people like nuns and priests and other people who are celibate. They're not reproducing, but we respect them in our society. Okay. Moving forward, the core of this conversation is you're different, We are all different. My nose is longer. Maybe I have a scar somewhere. Things like you might not like about someone, but don't go and put them in a law book and make them criminals and invite persecution by the general society against them. People are being fired from work, kicked from their rental houses, people are being burned, people are being killed in Uganda, and it's a sad state of affairs. Let us accept each other and build a good society based on peace, love, and freedom for all, for us, for this generation, and for the people who will come after us. Our legacy should not be antiquated with hatred and exclusion. We are moving forward to including everyone in society and respecting the humanity and the dignity of all. Whoever they love and whoever they have sex with should not be your business.
It should be left in the bedroom.
Bedrooms.
Eric, Gitari, Oluoch, Anthony, thank you both for joining us this morning. We appreciate important conversation to have. Thank you for spending that time with us right here on Morning Express.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you